Hey, there it is, the Fox 6 Sports Blitz, and we wouldn't be here unless you were there, so we definitely appreciate it. Lily Zhao, Brandon Cruz, Tim Van Voort, half an hour sports talk coming your way. Upcoming, here's our starting lineup. Portis is penalized, and in reality, so is his team. What's realistic for the Bobbyless Bucks? Marquette's at a college crossroads. How can the Golden Eagles regroup to avoid March sadness? And is it possible that the Badgers have peaked too early? The coach answers that in Say What? Plus our latest high school hotshot, pretty sharp.
I just feel bad for Bobby on so many levels. Dude's gone through a lot, this year with his mom passing and, his house been broken in and then this.
This is a 25-game suspension for taking something on the NBA's banned substance list. Lily Zhao, you were at the game today. Brandon, you were at the game the other night. Both of those things coming down after the decision is made. Brandon, I'll ask you first what the vibe was the night that the news came out about Bobby Portis.
I think it was disappointment, and more disappointment in how long this suspension is. They felt that they knew that something was going to happen, but 25 games for a one-time mistake, according to the Bucks. They said he only tested positive for tramadol instead of toradol this one time, and it's been a long process. They've known it's been in the works, but I think they were very surprised with how draconian this suspension was by taking, basically a third of the season away from it.
We've been doing this show many years. I've never heard the word draconian in this half hour, Lily.
That's impressive.
Which is right in context there, right on the money. So then let's contrast that with tonight. Bobby Portis is still on the minds of these guys, but has it been compartmentalized a little bit?
I think it has to be, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the guys have talked about we still have a job to get done. We have to win these basketball games without Bobby Portis, and when he comes back, he will be obviously helping the team. But until then, it is on our shoulders to get more wins without him. Of course, they're going to miss his scoring, his rebounding, the energy he brings to the bench as well. But that's the example of why you saw the team play as well as it did today. Their bench unit scoring 34 points. Kyle Kuzma stepping up. You have Kevin Porter Jr. stepping up. So guys who need to step up in the absence of Bobby Portis certainly did today, and that's why the Bucks came back and they won in that fourth quarter.
Okay, we're looking at some of those new guys, and right there's Kyle Kuzma in today's game. Here's Kevin Porter Jr., number 3. Energy guys, for one thing.
Absolutely, and that's what Kevin Porter Jr. talked about after the game. He said, it's my job to bring the energy. Why not do it in the fourth quarter? And he had that really nice spurt coming out of the fourth quarter. He had 7 straight points. Bucks on a 15-2 run. They were kind of stagnant those first 3 quarters. You see him come in, run point, and gets the crowd rejuvenated, and that's why the Bucks were able to win. They fed off that energy.
It's a new big 3 there. Porter and Kuzma and Jericho Sims had the dunk, and they needed that to overcome Tyler Hero.
Yeah, who comes into town and, coming off of winning the 3-point contest at the All-Star game, also being an All-Star. Then he comes home, parents sitting there on the floor watching the game, and he pours in 40. I mean, he almost willed the Heat to a win, even though the guys around him weren't doing as much. This was Tyler Hero really making a statement at home and showing that he is really taking the next step in his career. And for a kid from Whitnell High School who grew up in Greenfield, it says a lot about how excited he had to be in Milwaukee doing that against his hometown team.
He really has harnessed his talents too as his career has gone along. Interesting to see that progression for sure. All right, let's take apart the 3 guys we mentioned a little bit. Maybe they're do that. Jericho Sims, go.
Certainly a guy that saw limited action, but he comes in, he wants to be that guy under center. Good rim protector, and it was nice to see him get his first points as a Buck. You see the alley-oop slam there from Kevin Porter Jr. in the game tonight, but yeah, just a guy that they want to come off the bench and play some good minutes defensively, and I think he had 2 good games to start for the Bucks. Struggled a little bit early in this one, in their win tonight, I should say, but in their first 2 games, I think played pretty well, and that's exactly what you want in a guy like Jericho Sims.
He's a big guy. Interesting to see who he was defending in this final video here. That's one thing they're going to get him out on the floor. Kevin Porter's an entirely different type of player.
Yeah, and he's really kind of lit up the offense in the minutes he's had. He really came on against the Clippers and really had some big moments in that game on Thursday, and then we saw more of that today. And what you're seeing with him is he finds ways to score. And today, Damian Lillard Damian Lillard was talking about how excited he is to have him on the floor with him. They call him Scoop, and he said that he saw him as a high school player at a Nike event in Oregon and said he was the best player in that tournament and saw how good he is and is excited to see what he does here. And clearly he just brings some athleticism, and he's so quick, and he's able to score inside and out, something this team needs.
Well, let's talk about athleticism and energy, and it's a contrast. This is not a knock on anyone else, but it's different than when we watched Chris Middleton in the later days of his Bucks career. This week, the Bucks reunite with Chris Middleton. How was that for you as a viewer, Lily?
It was just weird seeing Chris Middleton not in a Bucks jersey, right? And I think a lot of people will say that. Spent 12 years in Milwaukee, meant a lot to the city, to the team, and of course to Giannis Antetokounmpo. To see him on the other side playing for the Wizards was just, it was an adjustment, but it was just funny because obviously Giannis was rooting for Chris to succeed, but he's, hey, rooting for him to not make shots in the game against the Bucks. And it was interesting to see the embrace there from the two friends, but you know, he's a guy going into Washington trying to rebuild that struggling team. So an adjustment for all, but it was nice that, and kind of fitting that his first game as a Wizard was against the Bucks.
And you mentioned Giannis. Here's what he had to say about his very good friend.
It looks weird. It looks weird with that jersey on. Yeah, it looks weird with that jersey on. He does not make that jersey look good at all. But you know, it's funny. You know, we had just a few laughs on the court. I miss him. I definitely miss that guy.
Still neighbors, still friends, no question about it. And Brandon, time marches on.
Yeah, it does. And I think right now what you're seeing is the Bucks like what they got in return with Kyle Kuzma. So it was good to see him, and hey, let him miss a game-tying 3 at the end of the game. So they get a win, but they get to see him and say hello, and now they move forward with Kuzma. It's kind of like putting that trade to bed.
All right, moving forward to college basketball for us here on the Blitz, and that's give us an opportunity to go with the Wisconsin Badgers first and foremost. They have had a very good season to this point, way above expectations. It was not a good game on Saturday against Oregon. Did that just happen?
I think so. I think teams are going to have maybe one dud, maybe 2 duds during the season. I think Greg Gard put it best. It was a very uncharacteristic game from the Badgers. They don't turn the ball over. They did 17 times against the Ducks. So it was an uncharacteristic game. They didn't get to the free throw line. They couldn't score. Guys were bottled up, and they gave up a big lead late in the game. And it just was just not something you would see from this Wisconsin Badgers team, to be kind of flustered like that with that full court pressure from Oregon. So an uncharacteristic game from this team. I don't think it's going to happen again. Better to get that game out of your system now than when it counts later on.
Well, they're like the Badger fans for a football game. They just didn't show up for the 11 o'clock start. I mean, really, that's what it seemed like. But earlier in the week, I was there for Illinois. That's a team they knew. That was a regular time game. They took care of business.
And they came out in that game with energy. It was a statement they wanted to make, and it was almost like a letdown against Oregon. So this game, they just dominated early on. I mean, you see guys falling, but still finding the right pass. And
the right pass is Tanji.
Yeah, exactly. Who scored 31. I mean, he's proven that he could be the player of the year. I mean, he's been that good and that important to this team and their success. So to me, with what you got there with the Illinois win, they were benefiting from Illinois having a number of players sick, but at the same time, they did not let up. And what happened against Oregon was you could see them feeling the pressure, not just the physical pressure, but the mental pressure. It was something that they didn't have to worry about against Illinois because they seemed to play so freely that day.
You mentioned the Illinois sick guys, and they didn't even shake hands at the end of the game. It was kind of a funny deal.
Oh, you've got to see this. We'll show you Greg Gard after this game. Like he's doing this.
What?
The crowd is booing him, thinking something's going on between the two. But, you know, the Illinois coach is like, hey, Brad Underwood's saying, look, we're all sick. We don't want to shake hands and get you guys sick. And you see Greg Gard just jump back like he was saying something terrible. And clearly it affected the end of the game handshakes.
Everything was figured out afterwards,
yes.
And it was all okay. All right, Sutter, talk about jumping back and, ooh, I don't like what I see. Segue Marquette, Lily. Boy, this has gotten off the rails now for the Golden Eagles. Can it get back on?
I hope it can. It's been a tough February. We'll say that, right? It's been a very tough February. This is not the team that we saw in December that was making that run, that was, you know, projected to be a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. They had that little rut there with the 3-game losing streak in the Big East. But in the month of February, their shooting has just been down. They have not been shooting well whatsoever. They can't hit a 3. Their regular starters are not, you know, getting the scoring production that Shaka Smart would like. You know, a couple of starters got benched in their last game as well. So it's been just a tough tough time for these guys to really get back on track offensively. So the question is, can they figure it out? Can they get this, bad monkey off their back per se? Because they have a lot of games. They don't have a lot of games left until the Big East tournament. And the only 2 wins they have this month are against teams at the bottom of the Big East. So they have to figure something out and figure it out quickly. Otherwise, it could be a very short visit in the postseason.
Have teams figured them out, Brandon? Is that part of what's gone on here?
I think so. I think they've realized that they're not a great rebounding team. They're also able to shoot threes. Villanova was 12 of 15 in the first half from three-point land, and it just really put the Golden Eagles in such a hole that they couldn't climb out of. And then their shooting is so poor. David Joplin was just 2 of 11 in this game, and that's a guy that they rely on to be able to at least hit the buckets. And Cam Jones has really struggled all year from three. So when you see multiple guys not hitting their shots, even though they're wide open for them, that's when you get concerned. And then their defense failed them, something we haven't seen with this team very often. But lately, they have not been able to close the other team down.
And that's video on the road right there. The UWM Panthers on the road this week. They get a nice win on Friday night. You'd take a split on the road most times in Horizon League basketball. Yeah, a little greedy. Hey, let's try to make it 2 in a row. Didn't happen at all today. So it's going to be tough to win this conference championship in the regular season. But the carrot that dangles is the NCAA bid anyway.
Absolutely. That's what the Panthers want. We'll see if they can get it. They lost to the number 1 team in the Horizon League, Robert Morris, today. So we'll see if they can make up ground later.
We will make up ground as we roll on with the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. Say what and a whole lot more right around the corner.
We got another game Friday.
You play like an old man.
We got another game Saturday.
That's a little bit of a trick question.
We got another game Sunday.
Being bit to death by a duck.
We got another game Monday.
The guy's baking a pizza back there.
It don't stop, right?
I don't know what's peaking, right? What's peaking? They're like peak, peaking. We're trying to get to the top.
A little peekaboo there in Madison this week, but the grind is really starting in baseball as the Brewers now are actually playing games. But the one thing that really matters at this point is guys being healthy, guys being ready to go when it starts to count at the end of March. We already found out now that Blake Perkins is done until at least early May. He fractured his shin by fouling a ball off of it, facing Freddie Peralta. How big of a deal is it to lose Blake Perkins for the rest of spring training and for the first month of baseball?
Blake Perkins was a pretty important player last year, and defense is pretty important to the Milwaukee Brewers. He said, gee, I fouled the ball off my leg many times. I didn't think I'd have an injury like this. It does set them back. Now you certainly have to keep Garrett Mitchell healthy because last year he went down, of course, in spring training, basically, and that's why Perkins got more playing time. Defense is big. Perkins provides so much of it when he's healthy.
Yeah, and this is now where you look at their front office to make moves. And reportedly, Mark Canha is coming back on a minor league deal. He will be invited to Major League Camp once that deal is done. And Manuel Margot from the Twins also signed. What does this do for shoring up that possibility in the outfield?
Right, you kind of just have to kind of piecemeal it together back there, right, until Blake Perkins can return. But speaking of Mark Canha, I think he's a guy who you can kind of put at a couple different positions. First base, you can shore that up for a little bit, or obviously in the outfield as well. So he's got experience. He's been with the team. I think he was well liked in the clubhouse as well. So you bring back a familiar face to help shore up some positions in need, and that's what you have to do at this point in time, right? Because until your key guys can come back, this is the move the Brewers make, and I think hopefully it will pay off well.
What does a presence like Mark Canha bring to a clubhouse?
Settling things down. He was, I think he, as you said, was well liked, Lily, and I think he was a stabilizing factor very quickly after arriving in Milwaukee as a trade deadline deal. He comes in and he has that presence. He's a very steady type of personality, and I thought it played an impact. It shows you what in baseball too. If you're a player like that, you have to take whatever you can get, wherever you can get it.
Yeah, it's a different game than it was just 5 years ago. Well, going back to injuries now, pitching-wise, the Brewers are deep at that position, but they're very young. You've got DL Hall, who was injured last year. Now he's out with a lat injury. What does this say, Lily, about his durability? I mean, we haven't seen a lot of him.
Right, and I think that's what is such a bummer, because I think in the offseason, the Brewers were kind of hoping DL Hall would be healthy so he could be that potential fifth guy in the rotation, but now he's sidelined with that lat injury like you mentioned. So just disappointing, because I think he has a lot of potential, but staying healthy is their biggest asset, and he hasn't been able to do that yet.
JB Bukauskas also out with a lat injury. This one could be serious. They're weighing the option of surgery also coming up. And in Cactus League, we do see Vinny Capra, Tim.
A couple homers. Vinny Capra, I think he's a long shot to make the roster, but he has a good spring training BA after game 1.
Yeah, 2 home runs, 1 a walk-off. Pretty good for him in the game that opened up Cactus League play for the Brewers. Now, before we go to break, the Brewers continue to honor and remember Bob Uecker. His presence still being felt in the press box at American Family Fields of Phoenix. His picture along with flowers and his seat with his name on it. The radio broadcast honored him throughout the whole game as well. And on Picture Day Friday, Christian Yelich strikes the perfect pose. He brought out his Bob Uecker bats that he had made for Players Weekend last season. Now, he was unable to use them then because of his back injury, so he made sure to put them to good use in this year's pictures. We'll be right back with our high school hotshot.
Welcome back. She's a part of a team that draws athletes from all across the state, and they've earned the chance to follow their dreams to represent on an international stage. Here's tonight's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
Hi, I'm Michaela Garrett, and I'm a senior at De Pere High School, and I'm a synchronized skater. I guess my earliest memory of skating is probably my mom taking me to the rink. She was a skater when she was younger. Then she decided to have me try synchronized skating, which is instead of skating alone, you skate with a team. It's obviously one thing to be able to execute like a skill by yourself, but then when you're surrounded by 15 other girls and you have to be in sync with them and in line with them and doing everything at the same time, that just adds like another level of difficulty that I think makes it really, really unique. We've gotten to represent the USA nationally and internationally, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, Austria, Scotland, England, and France twice in the past 4 years. The single-handedly, like something that is so, it just gives me chills still thinking about it. When you step on the ice and instead of saying representing the Fond du Lac Figure Skating Club, it's
representing the United States of America.
Team Fond du Lac Blades Junior.
When I was younger, I would look up to the girls who were on the junior team and think, wow, like I just want to be like them. I want to be on Team USA and I want to represent the United States. It's so rewarding, especially just knowing how far I've come from being a little girl and just wanting to be one of the big girls on the junior team so badly and now being in this position. It's just so incredible. Most of my friends know that I really like to run. I just like to go out, listen to music, listen to podcasts, and run. And I also am a big reader. I like mystery books, sometimes romance. I'm a little bit all over the place. I like to read anything, really. So in my past 4 years, we've taken home 2 silvers and a bronze for the U.S. Obviously, it's one thing to go there and skate and compete and come home, but it's another to be able to be on the podium and bring home medals for the U.S. Michaela Garrett, senior at De Pere High School, captain of the Fond du Lac Blades synchronized skating team. And I am this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
And Michaela does plan to continue skating in some capacity while in college. And up next, the Blades travel to Colorado to compete at Nationals. We'll be right back.
What's up next? The Bucs continue without Bobby Portis this week in Houston on Tuesday, home against the Nuggets Thursday, back to Texas for the Mavs Saturday.
And big week for college hoops. Marquette trying to get back on track, hosting Providence Tuesday before going to Georgetown Saturday. The Badgers welcome the worst team in the Big Ten, Washington, to the Kohl Center on Tuesday. Then they travel to Michigan State on Sunday. UWM wrapping up the regular season at home against Oakland on Thursday, and their final game in the horizon is against Detroit Mercy. That's Saturday afternoon.
And the Admirals finish February at home with the Phantoms at Panther Arena Tuesday. The Wild come to town on Friday. And the Combine starting this week. Tim, you're going to be there. A big week for the Packers, and Brian Gutekunst, he talks Tuesday at 9 a.m. with the media.
Yeah, he usually talks about the draft prospects when you're down there at the Combine. Talks a little bit about free agency as well. And, of course, this all leads up to the NFL draft in Green Bay. That's coming pretty fast, guys.
I mean, the NFL just, we talk about it this time of year all the time. It just doesn't stop.
Yep. You get the Super Bowl, then you get the Combine, then you get the draft coming up and free agency.
The rookies are in town and training camp begins.
Announce the schedule, and here we go again.
Summer's already over.
I know.
For Brandon, Lily, I'm Tim. Thanks. See ya.